Hey friends, welcome to another video. In today's video, we are going to dive into this exciting world of Tailwind CSS framework, which is making waves in the web development scene. We are going to be looking at what Tailwind CSS is. We'll discuss some advantages of Tailwind CSS, prerequisites, installing Tailwind CSS, and configuring it into our project. Also, we'll be looking at some basic concepts, and most importantly, we'll build a project using Tailwind CSS. So what exactly is Tailwind CSS? Let's just put it as Tailwind CSS is a utility-first CSS framework. Basically means that it's based on utilities, but not components. Also, Tailwind CSS gives you the opportunity to write your CSS in your HTML without having to switch tabs. Speaking of utility classes, Tailwind provides low-level utility classes for common styles. An example is this div that we have over here. You realize that the first line is Tailwind CSS being used to define this div. Very simple one line in your HTML markup. As compared to doing it in vanilla CSS, you would have to have a CSS file where you put this block of code below over here in it. And it looks very complex, and you would have to now get the color code, font sizing, and all that. As compared to Tailwind CSS, already has that defined for you in so many ways. We can all agree that the standard or even the requirements for a website or web app nowadays is for it to be responsive and mobile first. Luckily for us, Tailwind CSS provides us with that ability, which makes it very easy to use and very reliable. Now, some advantages of using Tailwind CSS is that it speeds up the development process, and it really takes a little effort for you to be able to achieve a lot in Tailwind CSS. Another one is this consistent design language. Once you see Tailwind CSS being used, you will know that this is Tailwind CSS, and very easy to even grasp. That's one thing that I think is really good for beginners. Once you know a little bit of CSS, using Tailwind CSS is very beginner friendly and it's very easy to use. Another advantage is that it gives you the opportunity to customize your CSS. So you're customizing your Tailwind CSS without actually writing custom CSS, which is pretty cool. And the support for frameworks like Laravel, Vue.js, React, and the rest is something that I think is very important, because if you're using a framework and you have to write your CSS again, that doesn't sound good. And thank God for Tailwind CSS, it's very easy to use in these frameworks. And the fact that it has responsiveness already built in, this is something that I repeat is really important in web development. Now, the basic things you should know before touching or learning to use Tailwind CSS is HTML and CSS. You should have basic knowledge of these two before you go into learning Tailwind CSS. Also, you should learn how to use the terminal, because that's what we are going to use to install Tailwind into our project. So let's jump right into installing Tailwind into our project and then having fun with it. First off, let's create a folder on our computer. I'm going to create one on my desktop and name it Troubles Gallery. You can name yours anyhow you want it. Then I would open VS Code. I'm going to use VS Code for this installation process, so I'll open VS Code. Now that we've opened our VS Code, let's open our folder that we created into VS Code so that we can start the installation process. After opening, let's open our terminal, which is what we are going to use to do the installation, which is why I requested that we get a bit knowledge of the terminal before we start. Now for this installation, I'm going to be referencing the documentation of Tailwind CSS itself. So let's go to the website and then see how we can install it. So you click on Get Started. And the first thing it says we should do is run npm install the Tailwind CSS. This is basically inviting or installing Tailwind into our folder. Then we would initialize Tailwind into our project by running this command, and it creates a tailwind.config.js file for us, which is where we'll be doing most of our configuration. Now we are going to configure our project to use Tailwind CSS. So we'll copy this block of code and paste it in our tailwind.config.js file. Now we need to add Tailwind directives to our CSS. So let's copy their Tailwind directives. Directives are custom Tailwind specific attributes we can use to specify our functionality for Tailwind CSS. Then we'll create a folder in our project called src, that's source basically. Then a file in it called input.css. Then we paste what we copied. The next thing is to build our CSS. So let's copy this command, and what it's going to do is create an output.css file, which basically means that whatever is in the input.css, it's outputting it into this file, but in a form of vanilla CSS. So it's created an output.css file for us with these details. You realize that this is basically vanilla CSS, and that's what that command does for us. So now our browser can interpret whatever we write, and then we are done with the installation. Now we can just try. Let's give Tailwind CSS a test. One important thing you have to notice that you have to reference your output.css file in your HTML file so that it's able to take effect. So again, in our src folder, we'll create an index.html, create an HTML markup, then we reference our output.css file. Then we paste the link we copied, the link reference we copied, sorry. So let's see HTML in action. These classes are self-explanatory, so I'm just copying what we have over here and then add it to ours, then we'll see how it works. Now open the index.html file you created in your browser, then voila, that's what we have. This is Tailwind CSS in action. The next thing we are going to do is go straight to the utility first fundamentals. So let's copy this and see how it looks. We won't get the image actually, but it will look much better. So let's try that. Paste. And yeah, this is what we have. We couldn't get the image because it's not referenced it's not in our project. So that's it for this video, guys. In the next video, we'll dive into the utilities more. See you on the next video. Don't forget to share and subscribe.